Welcome or welcome back if you've already been tuning in to some of the fabulous sessions in the A4Q Testing Summit edition 2024. I'm delighted to have with me Gitte Ottosen, who's based in Denmark, and she is with a company called Key to Quality. She's going to talk to us about roles, test manager, orchestrator, or quality coach. Gitte, I'm going to hand straight over to you. Sit back, everybody, and enjoy.
Thank you very much, Debbie. And thank you for tuning into this presentation. Who am I to talk today? As Debbie already mentioned, my name is Gitte. I've been working in testing for 29 years by now and have had many different roles over the years as a tester, test architect, test manager, quality coach in the later years, and been working with many different kinds of organizations. So some practical background, and also, of course, I'm a trainer in both ISTQB, TMAP, and other tailored training, amongst other quality coaching. So that's sort of my background for this. But what's the background for the presentation? Back when we started talking about Agile, we had presentations in conferences saying, is this the death of the tester? As it turned out, no, it's not. It's just a changing role. It's not a role that disappears. And now in the later years, I've noticed that the roles of test manager is changing quite a bit as well. If I look in job posting and look at what people are called, so what their titles are, there are many different titles nowadays, going from test lead to quality enabler, QA manager, quality orchestrator, of course, the quality coach, and test manager, many different roles, many different titles. And it's getting difficult to figure out, so who's who and what are you doing when you have a title like that? So I try to dive into a couple of them, trying to see what are the differences and does it really matter? So what I've looked into is ISTQB's definition of the test manager. They define it as the test manager is tasked with the overall responsibilities for the test process and successful leadership of the test activities. On the other hand, the newest book from TMAP, they define a new role called the end-to-end quality orchestrator. And the role for her is the person responsible for organizing end-to-end quality across multiple teams. And then we have the quality coach. When I talk about quality coaching, I very much lean towards the definitions and the work of Anne-Marie Sherrod. She has given it a lot of thought and has a lot of materials available for new and inspired quality coaches. She has a definition that says that a quality coach guides, supports, and rallies a team to collectively own and improve quality through facilitation, education, experimentation, and visualization. So someone who's a passionate advocate for quality. So those are the three roles that I've chosen to look into, to do a bit of a comparison to see what's happening out there, what are the differences. So in ISTQB Foundation, and I know there's a newer version than this one, but in this, in Foundation, there's a definition of the test manager. And it's very much a classical test manager, someone who defines test policy, test strategies, who plans the activities for a project or a program in terms of planning the different test phases, ensuring we have the right resources, the right skills, that the test environment is up and running and everything. But it's also a profile that looks very much into her test team. How can I support my testers in developing their skills and their careers, ensuring that I have a team that has a sufficient skill set to work as testers in the project? When the project is up and running, she's responsible for monitoring and controlling test activities, not only executing test activities, but also the activities covering preparing everything, creating test cases, organizing the test plan, ensuring test data and environment, resources, and so forth. And of course, reacting if something doesn't go according to plan. Also, when the project is running, she'll be working with test defect management. She might not be the defect manager as such, but is tightly connected with that role, because we are the ones that report most of the defects, and we need to take care that both they are fixed, but also that we get retesting and regression testing done sufficiently. She has a responsibility for reporting progress as we move on, but also final reporting at the end of test phases and the end of a release and so forth. Sometimes in writing, sometimes in meetings. Infrastructure is often something that is, I think, actually, it's one of the biggest challenges for most of us test managers, to get the infrastructure up and running, to have sufficient and good governed test environment. But that's also one of our responsibilities. As a test manager, you measure. You need to measure in order to monitor. You need to measure in order to control and report. Defining the metrics and implementing the metrics is a part of the test management skills. Supporting the projecting tooling related to testing is necessary as well, whether it's test automation, whether it's supporting CI/CD, tools for test design, creation and governance of test data, or so forth. That's a part of the test management work. But I'm also, as a test manager, an advocate for quality. I share testing perspectives with relevant stakeholders. I try to support my team and my organization best possible way in becoming better in testing quality assurance. When necessary, I can be the one initiating analysis and design and implementation of test cases. So when I know the scope, got to figure out what members of the test team is going to do what, ensuring that we're getting everything ready in time. So that's sort of the test management role as IS2QB defines it. In the book, Quality for DevOps Teams by Society in the Netherlands, which is a new definition of TMAP, there's a definition of a new role, a role that we haven't heard of before the book came out, called the end-to-end quality orchestrator. What is very specific about this role is that it is a role that leans very much into anything that is scaled in Agile in any way, whether it's safe or less or whatever brew you're working in. The end-to-end quality orchestrator is someone who's responsible for the quality across the different teams in the value stream, in the train, in the organization. So there's things that are borderlining something that sounds a bit like a test manager, ensuring the controlling aspects are is defined, so create control on quality. Communicating what quality is, whether it's in dashboards, it's in meetings and demos, or it's in reports. So that's something a bit like what the test manager has as well, but very much focusing on transparency. And then something that's very crucial in any project, and especially, of course, in Agile, is the support to continuously improve the way we work. So continuous improving of the process. That is something that the end-to-end quality orchestrator is very much supporting. And also its responsibility has that as a main responsibility as responsible for the end-to-end quality. So all aspects of testing, she is responsible for the continuous improvement. Very often when we see, for example, safe implementation, the individual teams will be involved in testing their features, but they will test very much in isolation, focusing on their work only. The end-to-end quality orchestrator has responsibility for organizing end-to-end testing across the teams, ensuring that business processes works as a whole, over platforms, over the different aspects of the process. So supporting the value stream as a whole. And that means that you, as an orchestrator, need to start up with having a good, solid stakeholder analysis, because you need to know who's your stakeholders, who can give you the necessary input into end-to-end quality orchestration, and into ensuring that the end-to-end processes are properly defined and we have the right knowledge to do end-to-end testing. Because of that, we have a virtual team consisting of members of all the different Agile teams and the end-to-end quality orchestrator as the PO of that team, where they have a backlog working on both the end-to-end testing, but also the different improvement activities. As a PO, you estimate the different activities, and you are a main owner of the backlog. That also means that because you have the focus across the different teams, you can support the preparation of different tooling that can support across the teams, so that we don't have islands of automation, islands of tooling and technology that supports only isolated teams, but not across the value stream. Whenever you work in some kind of scaling where different teams are working on different features, but going together for a release, you need to organize some alignment on features across the teams. That's one of the biggest challenges from a testing perspective, for example, in SAFe, is to focus on features that have effects across teams, ensuring that we do system integration testing and do testing across teams to see the solution as a whole. That's a part of the work of the end-to-end orchestrator. So main focus here is looking at the scope, focusing on quality end-to-end, focusing on improvement end-to-end. So there's a mandate and there's a responsibility, there's deliverables. That brings us to the last of the three roles, the quality coach. This model is made by Anne-Marie Sherritt, and you can find it in the link I've added in the bottom of the slide. I use this as a foundation every time I discuss quality coaching, and also in our quality coach training. You see, this is very different. Here, we sort of focusing on being a change agent, supporting your teams in improving their way of working. So making roadmaps for improvement based on retrospective, supporting the improvement journey, giving feedback, receiving feedback on the improvements. You coach individual people in the teams. You coach teams as a whole. You might need to coach on a management level as well, in terms of testing practices and motivation and collaboration. You do mentoring. If someone is new in a role or needs support in a role, you can mentor individual people. As a quality coach, you might also go in and facilitate workshops, being a retrospective, root cause analysis, or maybe bigger workshops that are based on challenges that we need to improve on. So as a way of starting maybe some kind of process improvement, you will start with doing an interactive workshop. And there the quality coach can support the team by facilitating. So the facilitation skills are extremely important as well. There's actually also an aspect of research. In order to be able to coach and advise and consult, doing consultancy in the team, you need to know about testing. To be a quality coach, you need basic testing skills. You need to know about exploratory testing. You need to know about test techniques. You need to know about what is a good test case. You need to know about tooling. So you also need to keep track on what is happening in the world around us, researching on tools and techniques, different approaches to do test and quality assurance, because that is a basic part of your toolbox as a quality coach. You need to know stuff to be able to consult and support your team. That brings us to consultancy. That means supporting with practical problems, practical things that needs to be implemented, identifying the right metrics to measure on, develop new frameworks for ways of working, supporting tools implementation, and so forth. But also advocating upwards, outwards about test and quality. Being an advocate for quality is an extremely important part of being a quality coach. We are marketing specialists as well in terms of test and QA. So 3 very different roles. If we should compare just the basic of the test manager and the quality coach, this comes from Anne-Marie Sherrod as well. If you notice, the test manager develops a testing strategy for the team. She's responsible for not only for facilitating that it happens, but very often in classical organization, she will be the one developing the test strategy. As a quality coach, you will facilitate the creation of the test strategy with the team, but the team creates the test strategy. As a test manager, you're responsible for the test activities, that they happen, that things progress as they're supposed to, that you go in and do controlling activities if they don't. If you're a quality coach, you enable test activities. You help the teams figuring out, how do we do testing? How do we do this the best possible way? But you're not responsible for it to happen. You don't have a delivery, where the test manager has deliverables. As a coach, you help, you enable, you facilitate, you mentor. So I don't expect you to sit and start reading this. This was just for fun, looking at the 3 different models. Where are the differences? So the test manager is very much a manager, very much someone who's responsible for delivering plans, ensuring that they happen. The orchestrator is somewhat the same, but not entirely, because she also has very much a role of supporting the teams in taking that responsibilities themselves. And the quality coach don't have that deliverable. They coach, they facilitate, they mentor. So some similarities, but also a lot of differences. So the thing is, do you have to choose? Do you have to choose a role? I want to be a test manager or a quality coach. No, I want to be an end-to-end orchestrator. I don't think so. Talking in food terms as a metaphor, don't see this as a menu in your pizzeria. You got to pick a pizza. See this more like a buffet. It's a buffet of work, a buffet of skills you need to have in order to best possible support your own team. So you don't have to choose one specific thing. You don't have to choose one column, one specific role. You pick and choose from the dishes on the buffet depending on your current needs. And that means you got to figure out whether you have the right tools and competences to your role. Let's face it, the guy on the picture here, he hasn't. You need to figure out what your needs are in terms of competences and skills. So look at your context. Are you in a waterfall? Maybe a V model? Are you in a Scrum team, Kanban team? Is it a hybrid? So you have waterfallish requirements, you have a waterfallish delivery to a customer in the end, but everything in between is agile. Or are you maybe in some version of Saves, Less, Spotify, or I took a picture of a quilt, because sometimes we make our own quilts. We make our own version of the development model that we want to use. Where are you? Understand what your context is. But context is so much more than just the development model. You need to figure out what you put in your toolbox, and there's much more in it. If you are in a customer vendor situation, if you are on a customer side, you've got a contract you need to adhere to. Have as well on the customer side. You have responsibilities on that side that might give you a mandate, but also give you limitations. The culture in your organization, what is possible, what is necessary. How do I make a role that best possibly fit into the culture we have? How does the rest of the organization look? What is the frames that we have in terms of organization? What domain are we in? I deliberately took that microscope because to remind myself that domain can be extremely can have a very different effect on the way of working. My latest assignment was in the medical industry. And in that domain, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of regulations that you have to adhere to that limits the freedom you have as a test manager, that limits the ways you can tailor your way of working, but also your team competences. Do you have skilled testers or skilled teams who are ready to learn about testing and well, maybe already know? Or are you completely depending on random representatives from the business that you get depending on the feature? Someone who is not used to testing? That would affect your abilities for change, but also your work, because you will need different approaches depending on what the competences are of your team. And that comes the regulations. As I said, in the medical industry, there's a standard. Sorry for a second. There's a standard called GAMP5 because they're working with medication. And it puts very strict regulations on level of documentation, on test cases, level of traceability, demands for reporting. So something that will limit your freedom and actually will move you very much more over in the direction of a classical test manager. What tools do we have available? What is possible for you to, is it possible for you to change those tools, or is that what you have? You have to map your ways of working into a given tool that's already given. But also locations. Are you all sitting in the same room? Or are you all over the globe? Or just in different buildings? That will affect your ways of working. So all that, together with your development model, will affect the tool set and the skill set that you need in your role. So you need to create your dish. What do I need? And it's, if you notice some of the words here, it's not just something about testing. It's change management, critical thinking, but it's also exploratory testing. It's the voice model. It's knowing about coaching. It might be specific. If you're not strong in test design techniques, you need to look into those. You need to know about tooling. There's so many different things you might need depending on your context. So define your own context, figure out what is needed, and create your own dish. And the thing is, where do I learn from? There are many different ways of learning, and we are very different people. I learn very much from working together with other people, listening to others' experiences, seeing what they're doing. I'm very visual, but I'm also very kinesthetic. I need to get my hands dirty to learn. I learn less from sitting down and reading a book, which, by the way, is pretty funny because I have a huge library of testing books. And I do read them, but I learn the best from the connection with other people, hearing their experiences. So books is one way. And as I said, I got a lot of them. I keep buying them because I love testing books. But also from peers in your organization. My company is a consultancy, but we have a rule that once a week we work from the office, because sitting in the same room together, discussing current problems or issues, there's always someone that you can reach out to and discuss a problem with. So I learn a lot from my peers. Podcasts. I love listening to podcasts because most podcasts are also based on practice. It's based on practical experiences. That doesn't mean that I don't like theory, not at all. But I am a trainer in several different standards or aspects like TMAP and ISTQB, and I love that there are standards and theory that can be the foundation of my learning. But hearing how other people hear the war stories of how did I then do that? That's amazing. I love that. So that's why I love listening to podcasts. Conferences, same thing. We're just in the same room, or at least in the same web session as you are right now. A conference is an amazing place to learn because people come from different countries, come from different domains, come with different experiences, have different approaches. So that's an amazing place to learn. YouTube. The big thing with YouTube is there's a lot of stuff on YouTube. And the challenge is it's not all good. You got to figure out what is good and what is bad and make your own library of YouTube stuff that makes sense to you. Web pages, blogs, webinars, articles. I'm a regular visitor to Anne-Marie Sherritt's website because I get so much inspiration for the quality coaching there. But I'm also very much a visitor to tmap.net because that's where I get a lot of the stuff when I do tmap trainings and when I talk about quality orchestration, when I'm out as a quality orchestrator. Networks, knowledge networks are amazing. If you can create communities of practice, that's a really good place. And training. There's a lot of good training out there. And I know there's a lot of religion when it comes to ISTQB and TMAP, whether you like it or not. But that's just two different ways of learning. Then there is rapid software testing, or there's other tailored training. Figure out what's your interest. Don't let yourself be limited by what is the right religion, what is the right practice. Learn from it all. Because you need to create your own toolbox that is yours, your personal box of competences and skills that can help you. And you have to look in all directions to learn. They're not just one school. I think it was Julia Gardner who said that she was a member of the School of Schools. I like that term. Learn from them all. So you got to figure out, how do I learn sufficiently to fill out the role that I have in my organization? This is just a couple of the things that are inspiring me. I have there's some podcasts, some books, some web pages, and this is just what came out on the top of my head. There's so much more out there. So I might have forgotten a link or 10. Put good links in the chat if you have ideas that can inspire others. I would love to get new inspiration and new places to go and visit. So by all means, put it in the chat for all of us to see. But that was what I had for you. I hope that had given you some inspiration to stop and have a look at what is my role today. What do I need to become better in the role I have? And is it the right role I have? Should that one change? Should we have a discussion in our organization to figure out what the right role is? Thank you very much.
Thank you for that so much, Gitte, both inspiration and insight. And I hope it's given people some real good food for thought about titles and job roles, and also building that toolkit. I really personally enjoyed listening to your discussion about learning, and something which I think is really important to all of us. Hopefully we've got some questions for you, Gitte. Okay, does the title matter at all? What's in a title, Gitte?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, you could say that inside the team, if you are inside a team and everybody knows what you're doing, then it doesn't really matter. But the thing is, we are not just moving inside a small circle of people. So when you are working across teams and you're going to advocate out in the organization, you need to have a title that sort of illustrates what are you doing? What is your role? So your role and your title should match somehow. I don't really care what my title is, as long as it matches what I'm doing.
Yes.
So it's not important that it has to be one fancy title at all. It just should illustrate what I'm doing. Then I'm happy.
Mm-hmm. And communicating titles, Gitte, so how do you make sure that other people in the team are understanding that your role and what that title might mean to them? How do we make sure that communication is happening?
Oh yeah, that's the good one. I mean, especially if you have been in the team all the time as one role and moving to another, I think you have to do it explicitly. Mm-hmm. Not just put a new signature on your mail saying, okay, now I'm a quality coach instead of a test manager. It should be a part of a stand-up or a status meeting or someone saying, okay, my role in the team has changed.
Yes.
Not for moving forward, I will be working as a quality coach across the teams. This means that I will no longer be responsible for the deliverables, but I will be. So I think you should call it out explicitly so that people understand what the title means, especially if it's a title that's never been used before in your organization.
Yes.
I mean, I have a colleague who had a title called Quality Enabler, and I was like, what? What's quality enabler? So if you make new but as he explained it to me, it made sense. So it's not enough just to put a new signature, and you have to put some words in. What is that role?
It goes back to what you were saying earlier about context, doesn't it? Making sure the context is right. Yeah. Do we have some more questions here? Let's have a look. Organizations of different sizes have different needs. Are these roles more relevant in one context than another, perhaps?
I mean, the classical test manager is, of course, in waterfall, bigger complex projects where you need formal deliverables, you need formal documentation. But a test manager could be just as relevant on a program where you have 5 different agile teams working agile, because you still have a responsibility for collecting a deliverable and doing some kind of delivery. You might have people sitting in the teams with testing competences that need support. So that could be a test manager. Or you could choose to go towards the end-to-end quality orchestrator. I think the end-to-end quality orchestrator is the one that I think is mostly in as long as you are agile and scale.
Yes.
Whether it's safe or less or Spotify or whatever you call it. But as long as you're scaling your agile, you need someone like an end-to-end quality orchestrator. I've had a lot of discussion when it comes to the quality coach. I had the question when we first communicated about our new quality coach training course from someone who was not in an agile context, who was in a classical waterfall. Said, but does it make any sense to me? Yeah, it does, because I mean, a lot of the coaching and the mentoring, the facilitation, change management, process improvement, you need that in waterfall and V model as well. You need that in big organizations and you need it in small. I mean, even though you're in just a small organization, you still need to do process improvement.
Yes, absolutely.
Still need to support the change management. So that role, I think, is very much across the whole, both waterfall, V model, safe, agile, whatever. It's just enabling other people to take ownerships of quality.
Absolutely. I liked your analogy, just as a by the way, with the buffet and the food and, putting what you need on your plate. I thought she inspired quite a lot of thoughts in me about, how to pick and choose the skills that are needed, but because it's food related, appeal to me very much.
Yeah, but also because, I mean, that are not two contexts that are the same.
Yes.
Making a list and say you got to do this or you got to do this. That doesn't make sense, because there's not two people who are working in the same context, so they need to tailor somehow.
Yeah,
and then food is just a pleasant way of describing it.
Very, very, very much my kind of analogy. Kenza, do we have anything else there? Oh, here we go. Does being a people manager affect the role of test leader quality coach?
Oh, that's a good one. Because I have had some very strong discussions around this over the years. Back before I became a consultant, I was a program test manager and we had the discussion about people management. But the thing is, I have 100% hard disk space up here. 100% of focus I can deliver. If I'm a test manager, 100%, then I can give it my all. If I'm a people manager and a test manager, then I have to divide the plate. I have to divide my hard disk, right? A part for the people management and a part for test management. And personally, I just prefer to use my entire hard disk space to work with testing. Mm-hmm. I've seen test managers becoming people managers, and the more people they got in the team, the less focus they had on the testing. Something will suffer when the team goes big. Either you are people management or you're test management. So as long as you only have a few, you might be able to be a test manager and a people manager. But being a people manager of 10, 15 people, which I have seen and more, and at the same time being responsible for setting a test strategy, supporting a large program in implementing that strategy, supporting the whole all the activities in the program, that's not doable. That's my claim. There might be a superwoman or superman out there who can do it. I at least can't. And I won't risk compromising any of the two roles. So I took the choice at an early point that I do not want people management. Also because I don't think I would be a very good people manager. That's another part of it. When it comes to the quality coach, I'm a little bit the same, but that's more because you can use, as a people manager, you can use coaching techniques, and you do. I would assume you as a manager would do that. But doing close coaching with individuals, being a people manager at the same time, I'm not entirely sure I would be comfortable with on either side of the table, actually. But again, I think just as with the dish, I think it depends very much on the person. I think you've got to figure out what works for you and be very much aware that you have 100% focus you can deliver.
Does this go back somewhat to the context of the organization as well, Gitte? The actual team structure and, again, defining that role, what is the test manager doing in the organization and who else doing what in the team? So I think there's lots of different contexts here to consider as well.
Yeah, because I mean, if you, I have an example from a very, very big program where they had a program test manager who also had people management responsibilities, but she had what they call test coordinators. So she had a layer of test coordinators that went out on with someone focusing on performance testing, someone UAT, someone whatever, and did the implementation of the strategy. So she was more responsible looking upwards, outwards, yes, and they were looking downwards. And if you can have a split like that, then you might manage to do it. But if you are expected to get your hands dirty as well, down in the teams and supporting the teams with practical stuff, then you will have your hands full just being a test manager.
I think we've come to the end of the session, and I know that will trigger some good debate, and I know people have some views, so please pop it into the chat. Can I say a huge thank you, Gitte, as ever, really, really inspirational and some good stuff in there, good insight. To everybody who's watching, please stay tuned for the next session, and don't forget that you can vote also for your favourite speaker. So a big shout out to Gitte. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.